The city marshal handed me the keys, his face a mask of professional indifference. "She's gone, sir. Place is all yours." I stepped into my own apartment for the first time in a year. The smell hit me first. A sour cocktail, a stale cigarette smoke, and garbage. My sofa, a beautiful Chesterfield I'd spent a fortune on, had a dark, ugly stain across the leather. The microwave door was cracked. A trail of greasy fingerprints marred the walls. This wasn't just neglect. This was contempt. A final parting shot from a woman who had smiled at me, shaken my hand, and proceeded to systematically dismantle my life from 8,000 miles away. She thought she was a ghost. She had vanished back to Australia, leaving behind a wake of debt and filth, thinking she was untouchable. She was wrong. In my old line of work, we used to say, the ink is mightier than the sword. I was about to update that for the 21st century. She didn't know it yet, but I was about to build her a ghost of my own, one that would follow.
My name is Frank. For 40 years, I owned a small print shop in Greenwich Village, Franklin Press. We did everything: business cards, wedding invitations, art gallery catalogs. I love the smell of ink, the weight of good paper stock, the satisfying clatter of an old Heidelberg press. My life was built on facts, on clear communication, on making sure every letter was perfectly aligned. Your word printed on paper was your bond. The apartment was my life's work. A 2-bedroom on the Upper West Side, a pre-war classic that I bought as a wreck in the 80s and restored myself year by year. I laid the floors, I hung the crown molding, I chose every fixture. It was my sanctuary. But life throws you curves. My father's Parkinson's got worse. At 87, he couldn't live alone anymore in the little house on Long Island where I grew up. So I made a decision. I closed the shop, packed up my life, and moved back home to be his full-time caregiver. The plan was simple. The rental income from my apartment would be my new salary. It was my nest egg, my retirement, and my father's security all rolled into one. That's when I met Eleanor Vance. She was in her 50s, from Queensland, Australia, poised, well-dressed, gainfully employed at a big financial firm. She said she'd owned her own home for 30 years, so she had no landlord references, but she had glowing letters from colleagues and friends. She met all financial requirements. She looked me in the eye and told me how much she adored the apartment, how she would care for it as if it were her own. I believed her. I handed her the keys to my home, to my future. It was the biggest mistake of my life.
The first 7 months, everything was perfect. The rent was paid on time, like clockwork. Then in the 8th month, nothing. I called, it went to voicemail. I emailed, an auto reply came back, out of the office. A week later, a brief email, "So sorry, Frank, a mix-up with an international bank transfer. We'll sort it out immediately." It was the first crack in the facade. The money never came. My calls became more frequent, the excuses became more elaborate. Then they stopped altogether. She just went silent, a complete ghost. Meanwhile, my own savings were dwindling. My father's medical bills were piling up. The income I was depending on had vanished. The frustration was immense, but the feeling of being played for a fool was worse. I had to hire a lawyer and begin the long, soul-crushing process of eviction in New York City housing court. It took months of paperwork, court dates she never showed up for, and legal fees eating away at what little I had left, all while juggling my dad's care, making his meals, helping him with his physical therapy, watching the man who taught me how to be strong grow weaker every day. The court eventually ruled in my favor. They granted the eviction and a judgment for the $16,000 in unpaid rent. After she was gone and I saw the state of the apartment, I went back to small claims court and won another judgment for over $7,000 in damages. I had 2 pieces of paper from the city of New York saying I was right. But they were worthless. My lawyer was blunt. Frank, she's in Australia. To domesticate these judgments there, hire a local solicitor, find her, and garnish her wages, you'd spend more than she owes you. She knows that. She played the system perfectly. I felt a helplessness I'd never known. I had followed the rules. I had done everything right. And I had lost. She had won. She was back in her sunny life in Queensland, $23,000 richer, without a care in the world. And I was left to clean up her mess.
Defeat is a bitter pill to swallow. For a week, I just sat with it. I cleaned the apartment myself, scrubbing away the evidence of her disrespect. With every stain I removed, my anger cooled and hardened into something else. It was no longer about the money. It was about the principle. In my print shop, if a client didn't pay, their name went on a list. Word got around. Reputation mattered. This woman had no reputation here, and she had counted on the ocean to protect her. One night, after my father was asleep, I sat at the kitchen table with my laptop. I typed her name into Google. It was a very unique name. There were only a few results. A mention in a company newsletter, a link to a bridge club in Queensland. An idea sparked. It was a crazy idea for a guy who still thought of carbon copy as a physical thing. But the world had changed. In the old days, a reputation was built by word of mouth in a village. Today, the village is the entire planet, and the village square is Google. I called my nephew, Kevin. He's 25 and works in tech. "Uncle Frank, what's up?" I said, "Kevin, I have a weird question. How hard is it to build a website?" I told him the whole story. He was quiet for a moment. He said, "She ghosted you, so you're going to build a digital ghost to haunt her forever." I love it. It's actually pretty easy, and I know just how to make sure everyone sees it. He explained SEO to me, search engine optimization. He said it was like being a good detective, figuring out what clues Google looks for to decide what's important. Facts, documents, clarity, everything my life had been about. A plan formed in my mind, a clear, precise blueprint. I wasn't going to slander her. I wasn't going to lie. I was going to do what I did best. I was going to print the facts. But this time, the ink would be pixels, and the press would be the internet. The first thing I did was buy the domain name. Her full, unique name, followed by a .com. It was available. It cost me $12. It was the best $12 I ever spent. For the next 2 weeks, Kevin and I worked. He handled the technical side, and I handled the content. I created a simple, professional-looking website. No angry rants, no emotional language, just the cold, hard facts. The homepage had her picture, the one from her rental application, had a simple headline, "The Public Record of Eleanor Vance." I created pages for each piece of evidence. I scanned the official court judgment for $16,000 in unpaid rent and uploaded the PDF. I scanned the judgment for the damages. I scanned the city marshal's eviction notice. I created a gallery of the photos I took of the apartment, the stained sofa, the broken microwave, the filth. I wrote a brief, factual timeline of events, quoting her own emails and citing the court case numbers. I even included the details of where she worked and the bridge club she frequented. Everything was verifiable. Everything was true. Then came the hard part. Kevin taught me how to tag the images, how to write the descriptions, how to structure the site so that Google's algorithms would see it as the most authoritative source of information about Eleanor Vance. It was like setting up a press for a perfect print run. Every detail had to be right. I launched the site and waited. For the first month, it was buried on page 10 of the search results. But I kept working on it, refining the text, adding tags. Slowly, it started to climb. Page 8, page 5. Then one morning, about 3 months in, I typed her name into the search bar. And there it was, result number 1. My website. My digital ghost. The trap was set.
The first sign that it was working came from the website's analytics, a visit from an IP address that traced back to the corporate headquarters of the financial firm where she worked in Queensland. Someone there had Googled her. Met another hit from the same company a few days later. The next step was mine. I still had the letters of reference she had submitted. I composed a polite, formal email to each of the people who had vouched for her character. Dear Mr. Smith, it read, you provided a reference for Ms. Eleanor Vance for an apartment she rented from me. As you vouched for her integrity, I felt it was my duty to inform you of the official outcome of her tenancy. You can find the public court records and documentation at the following link. Sincerely, Frank Miller. 2 of them wrote back, horrified and deeply apologetic, swearing they had no idea. They'd been played too. Her network of trust was beginning to unravel. A few months later, I got an anonymous email through the website's contact form. I saw this woman at a professional conference in Brisbane. She's a fraud. Good on you for exposing her. The satisfaction was immense. It wasn't the roar of a crowd. It was the quiet hum of a perfectly running machine. My ghost was working. Anytime she applied for a new job, a new apartment, a credit card, anyone who did the most basic due diligence would find the truth. Her name, the one thing she couldn't change, was now permanently linked to her actions. It's been 3 years. I still own the domain. The website is still up. I pay a small fee every year to keep it live. It's the best money I spend. It's my quiet reminder to her and to the world that you can't just walk away.
My father passed away last year, peacefully. I'm still in his house, surrounded by his things. Sometimes I think about what he would have made of all this. He was a man of his word. He believed a handshake was a contract. The idea of someone behaving with such casual cruelty would have baffled him. He wouldn't have understood the technology, but he would have understood the principle. Reputation is the currency of a good life. It's built over decades of honest work and fair dealing. In the old world, you could run from a bad reputation. You could move to a new town and start over, but that world is gone. Now, the world is the town, and the internet is its memory. It never forgets. I didn't get my money back, but I got something more valuable. I got justice. I took away her ability to hide. I took away her power to do this to another person who, like me, was just trying to do the right thing. She cost me $23,000, but my digital ghost is costing her a lifetime of looking over her shoulder. And that, as they say in the printing business, is a debt that is marked paid in full.